Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real tonight. Something most people don't want to admit because it hits too close to home. Silence does not mean absence of feeling. It often means presence of reflection. Now let me break that down in a way that really reaches you, because a lot of people misunderstand quiet moments in relationships, and they assume that quiet means it's over. Quiet means he doesn't care. Quiet means you're forgotten. But life and human emotion are far more complicated than that. When a man goes silent, most women immediately assume the worst. They think the connection has died. They think the interest is gone. They think the feelings have evaporated into thin air. But what they don't realize is that silence is often not empty at all. Silence is full. It is full of thoughts, full of questions, full of internal conversations a man is having with himself that he has not yet figured out how to put into words. You see, reflection does not happen in noise. Reflection happens in quiet. A man cannot think clearly about what he feels when he is constantly talking, constantly distracted, constantly entertained, constantly engaged in new conversations and new environments. But the moment everything slows down, the moment the messages stop flowing, the moment the attention shifts away from him, that is when his mind begins to replay everything. And what does he replay? He replays moments with you. He replays conversations that may have seemed small at the time but suddenly feel bigger in hindsight. He replays how you reacted, how you cared, how you spoke, how you treated him when things were good and even when things were not so good. Because reflection does not just highlight the good moments, it analyzes everything. Now here is something most people do not understand about reflection in silence. It is not instant clarity. It is not a man suddenly waking up and saying, I know exactly what I want. No, reflection is messy. It is confusion first. It is emotional tension first. It is questions without answers first. A man in silence is not always calm. Sometimes he is actually more disturbed in silence than he ever was in conversation, because now he has no distraction to run from his thoughts. And that is where your presence becomes louder in his mind. Not because you are trying to be loud, but because you are no longer actively filling the space. When you were talking to him, when you were present, when you were engaging, there was a rhythm, there was interaction, there was movement. But in silence, the absence of that rhythm creates awareness. He starts noticing what is no longer there. Let me tell you something real about human psychology. People often don't appreciate the full weight of someone's presence until that presence becomes absence. And in that absence, the brain starts doing what it naturally does. It fills in gaps. It reconstructs memories. It replays emotional experiences. It tries to make sense of what it lost or what it still has not fully understood. So when I say silence does not mean absence of feeling, I mean exactly that. Feelings do not just switch off because communication stopped. Feelings go underground. They go inward. They become thoughts instead of actions. They become memories instead of conversations. They become reflection instead of expression. And here is where it gets even deeper. A man may not express what he feels in silence, but that does not mean he is not feeling anything. In fact, sometimes silence is where the strongest feelings are processed. Because when there is no pressure to respond, no pressure to perform, no pressure to explain himself, that is when he is forced to sit with what is actually inside him. And what is inside him may surprise even him. He might start realizing he misses the way you understood him. He might start remembering how naturally things flowed when you were around. He might start questioning why something that once felt so easy now feels different. And all of that happens not in conversation, but in silence. But let me also be very clear with you. Reflection in silence does not guarantee action. Just because a man is thinking does not mean he is moving. Just because he is remembering does not mean he is returning. Just because he is feeling does not mean he is expressing. That is the part many people struggle with. They confuse internal reflection with external commitment. So while silence can be powerful, while silence can reveal truth, while silence can deepen thought, it does not automatically change behavior. It only reveals what is already inside. And what a man does with that reflection depends on his level of awareness, his emotional maturity, and his willingness to act on what he discovers within himself. Still, never underestimate the power of silence in shaping realization, because sometimes the loudest understanding a person will ever have about you does not come from what you said when you were present. It comes from what they realize when you are no longer speaking into their life every day. When a man can't reach you, he starts remembering you. And I need you to really understand what that means on a deeper level. Not the surface level emotions people usually attach to it, but the psychological shift that happens when access is removed. Because access changes perception. When someone has you available, consistent, reachable, and present, the brain treats that connection differently. It becomes part of routine. But when that access is suddenly gone, the mind is forced to reevaluate what it once took for granted. Now listen carefully. Distance does not erase emotion. It exposes it. Because when you remove yourself from a man's daily access, you remove his ability to interact with you in real time. And what replaces interaction? Memory, thought, reflection, replay. The human mind is not designed to simply delete meaningful experiences. It stores them. And when triggered by absence, it begins to revisit them. So when he can't reach you, the first thing that happens is not forgetfulness. It is curiosity. And curiosity is powerful. He starts asking himself silent questions. What is she doing? Why is she not reaching out? Has she moved on? Is she upset? Is she indifferent now? And those questions don't stay shallow. They go deeper over time. Because the absence of answers forces the mind to create its own explanations. And this is where remembering begins. He starts remembering your voice in moments of quiet. He starts remembering your presence in moments of loneliness. He starts remembering your reactions when he is faced with similar situations from other people. Because memory is not random, it is triggered. And absence is one of the strongest triggers of memory. Now let me be honest with you. When a man has constant access to you, he may not fully process your emotional value. Not because you are not valuable, but because familiarity reduces urgency. He gets used to you being there. He assumes presence will continue. He doesn't feel the emotional weight of losing you because nothing is missing yet. But the moment you are no longer reachable, the emotional system shifts from comfort to evaluation. And evaluation is where remembering becomes intense. He starts to evaluate moments he never thought about before. Conversations that once felt ordinary now feel meaningful. Small gestures now feel significant. Even disagreements now replay differently in his mind because absence gives everything a new perspective. And this is not because you changed, but because his access changed. Let me explain something deeper. Human beings often understand value more clearly in absence than in presence. It is not intentional, it is psychological. When something is consistently available, the mind labels it as stable. But when that stability is removed, the brain recognizes change, and change forces attention. That attention then turns into reflection, and reflection turns into memory. So yes, when he can't reach you, he starts remembering you more vividly than when you were available every day. Not because you suddenly became more important, but because your absence created emotional contrast. And contrast is what sharpens memory. But here is where most people misunderstand this process. Remembering does not always mean action. A man can remember you deeply and still not reach out. He can think about you often and still remain silent. He can feel your absence and still not express it. Because remembering is internal, but action requires decision, courage, and emotional readiness. And not every man is ready for that. Some men will sit in their memories longer than they should. They will replay moments instead of rebuilding connections. They will think instead of act. They will reflect instead of reach. And that is where silence becomes powerful, but also confusing. Because from the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But on the inside, something very real is unfolding. He is remembering you in ways he didn't when you were present. He is comparing current emptiness to past connection. He is realizing what your presence added to his life emotionally, mentally, even in small daily ways he never acknowledged at the time. Let me bring balance to this truth. Just because he remembers you does not mean he is ready for you. Just because he feels your absence does not mean he is prepared to change. Just because you occupy his thoughts does not guarantee you occupy his future. That is where wisdom comes in for you. Understanding that being remembered is not the same as being chosen. Thinking is not the same as doing. Missing is not the same as committing. Still, the impact of absence cannot be denied. When a man cannot reach you, he is forced to sit with reality without distraction. In that space, memories become louder. Your presence becomes clearer in hindsight than it ever was in the moment. And whether he admits it or not, you begin to exist in his mind in a way that silence cannot erase, only amplify. Emotional impact is stronger after distance than during closeness. Now, I want you to really sit with that idea, because it goes against what most people believe about love, connection, and relationships. Most people think the strongest emotions happen when two people are constantly together, constantly talking, constantly sharing space. But the truth is, emotional intensity is often not created in closeness. It is revealed in distance. When two people are close, there is activity, there is communication, there is routine, there is interaction that fills the emotional space. But when distance enters, something changes. The noise fades, the distractions reduce, and what is left behind is not less emotion, but unfiltered emotion. Because distance removes the comfort of presence and replaces it with reflection. Now let me break this down for you in a way that makes sense emotionally and psychologically. During closeness, a man may feel good, but he is also comfortable. Comfort often softens emotional urgency. He sees you, he talks to you, he has access to you, so his mind doesn't always pause to deeply analyze what he is feeling. Things flow naturally, but not always deeply consciously. He enjoys the moment, but he doesn't always dissect the moment. But distance changes that completely. When you are no longer physically or emotionally present in the same way, the mind is forced to process what was once taken for granted. And this is where emotional impact intensifies. Because now there is no more daily interaction to distract him from what your presence actually meant. Instead, there is memory, there is silence, there is comparison between what was and what is now missing. And let me tell you something very important. Absence creates emotional contrast, and contrast is what deepens understanding. A man doesn't always realize how much someone impacted him while they are still in his space. It is only when that space changes that the emotional weight becomes clearer. So during distance, he starts remembering moments differently. Things that felt casual during closeness now feel meaningful. Things that were overlooked now feel significant. Even small habits, small conversations, small routines begin to take emotional shape in his mind, because distance removes the present and strengthens the past in memory. Now here is the deeper truth. Emotional impact is not just about how strongly someone feels in the moment. It is about how long that feeling lingers when the moment is gone. And distance tests that. It reveals whether what he felt was temporary comfort or something that actually left a lasting emotional mark. When a man is still emotionally connected, distance doesn't erase that connection. It amplifies it internally. He starts replaying conversations. He starts remembering how he felt around you. He starts comparing your presence to the silence that replaced it. And that comparison is where emotional impact grows stronger than it ever felt during closeness. But there is another layer to this that people often overlook. Distance doesn't just amplify positive memories, it also forces emotional evaluation. He starts questioning things. He starts analyzing moments. He starts wondering what went wrong, what changed, what he could have done differently, or what he didn't fully appreciate at the time. And that emotional questioning deepens the impact even more because now feelings are mixed with thought. And when emotion and thought combine, impact becomes heavier. Now let me be honest with you about something most people don't want to accept. Just because emotional impact becomes stronger after distance does not automatically mean action will follow. A man can feel deeply impacted and still remain still. He can feel your absence strongly and still not reach out. He can understand your value more clearly in distance and still not act on that understanding. Why? Because emotional clarity and emotional readiness are not the same thing. Some men need time to process feelings without turning them into decisions. Some men get stuck in reflection instead of movement. Some men understand too late but still do not bridge the gap. And that is why distance can intensify emotion without guaranteeing resolution. But still, the truth remains powerful. Distance reveals depth. Because what fades quickly was never deeply rooted, but what grows stronger in absence was always more meaningful than it appeared in closeness. And that is why emotional impact often reaches its peak, not when two people are together, but when they are apart and forced to sit with what remains in memory, thought, and feeling. So when you look at distance, don't assume it means emotional decline. In many cases, it is the exact opposite. It is where emotional truth becomes louder than emotional routine, and where what was once unnoticed becomes unforgettable in silence. What is truly valuable is never fully erased from memory, and this is something people underestimate in relationships, in breakups, in silence, and in emotional distance. Because we often think that time, space, or silence can completely remove someone from a person's mind. But the truth is, the human mind does not work like a simple erase button. It works like a storage system. And what has true value does not get deleted. It gets stored deeper. Now let's understand this on a deeper emotional level. When something or someone has real emotional value, it creates an imprint. That imprint is not dependent on constant presence. It is dependent on impact. And impact is what determines memory strength. You can talk to someone every day and still not leave a deep emotional imprint. Or you can have a few meaningful moments with someone, and those moments stay alive in their mind for a long time. So when we say what is truly valuable is never fully erased from memory, we are talking about emotional significance. Because the brain naturally filters experiences, it may forget details, but it does not easily forget feelings. It may blur conversations, but it remembers how those